How's it going, guys? Today we're going to be discussing another topic that has been requested by one of my patrons. One of my patrons was asking, what do I do if I get stuck during an interview? What do I do if I've never heard this kind of question? What do I do if I totally blank? And so today I thought it'd be a good idea to make a video about 3 tips that you can use to solve any interview question. Okay guys, so let's say you're in your interview, you read the question, you're stuck, you don't understand it, you've never heard the question before, your interviewer isn't being super helpful. What do you do, right? You can't just give up. Chances are you probably still have about 40 minutes to 45 minutes to actually solve this question, and you need to do your very best to do so. So, what do we do? Well, today I've actually come up with 3 different tips that I think that you can use and apply to all your interview questions to hopefully arrive at an answer if you're ever in that unfortunate case where you don't really know what's happening. So today I want to tell you about those 3 tips, and my first tip is really to just think about the problem in real life. So I think a lot of these interview questions that were asked are crazy complicated. I think a lot of them have to do with math. I think a lot of them are frankly ridiculous. But that doesn't really change the fact that we have to try and solve them, and that we probably need to know them for these big tech companies along with other companies in general. So I think it really helps sometimes to read the question, try and digest it, and then just think about it in real life. So let's say your interview question for some reason was to sort numbers, right? I think the best way to do that for some reason, if you didn't actually know how to sort numbers in terms of code, I think you should just, almost with like pen and paper or just in your head or talking about it, think about how you would sort a list of numbers just in real life, right? And so intuitively, like what I would probably do without even realizing is I would probably look down at the numbers, I would go and find the smallest number, and then I would bring it to the front. And then I would go and find the next smallest number, not considering the first number anymore, and bring that to the second position, and so on and so forth. So just think about the problem in real life. Don't really worry about the code too much, because it's just going to bog you down. So the first thing you need to do is just understand that question and try and relate it to real life. So one of the things that really helps with kind of digesting a problem and thinking about it in real life is just rewriting the question in a way that you can understand it. So again, a lot of these questions are complicated, some of them are really long-winded, and not all the information is super relevant to what you need to do to solve the question. So what I would recommend you do is actually just take a second and either rephrase the question in a way that makes sense to you, or even write down a couple notes or a sentence or two so that you can always go back and read your summary of the text or of the question so that you understand what you have to do at all times. The next thing I think you could do is definitely think about a solution to the problem once you've actually understood it and once you're thinking about the problem in real life. So people get bogged down with, oh, this solution isn't fast enough, it's not going to run, it's not good enough. Don't worry about that right now. Right now, just think about a solution, a way that you could solve the problem in real life if you're actually able to conceptualize and think about the problem in real life. And once you've arrived at a solution that works, great. We could actually take that solution and try and optimize it, try and make it faster, and try and make it better. But at first, start somewhere, right? Just try and come up with a solution. Don't worry about if it runs in logarithmic time and linear time and exponential time. It doesn't really matter. Just try and come up with a solution, and once you have that solution, you can kind of jump off from that stepping stone and hopefully optimize it. And so once you guys actually have that solution, hopefully you'll then be able to translate it into code, and then maybe going through the code again, you'll be able to realize maybe some of the work that you're doing that's not necessary in ways that you can essentially just optimize your solution. My second tip for you, and probably my favorite one, is called RubberDucking. And so for those of you guys who don't know, RubberDucking is the idea that whenever you're running into a bug or a problem in software engineering, it's typical for engineers, at least like metaphorically. I actually like literally have one, and I think a lot of people do as well. So you have this little rubber duck on your desk, and the whole idea is that whenever you don't really understand a bug that's happening or something's going wrong in your code, you can talk to your rubber duck, as crazy as it sounds, or you could just use another engineer and try and figure out what's going on. And so the whole idea is that you trace through your code top to bottom and just explain out loud what's happening and why. And the idea is that hopefully you're going to say exactly what's wrong, you're going to hear it, and you're going to realize, okay, line 50 is where my bug is. And so the reason why I think that this is helpful is for a few different reasons. But the first reason is just the fact that hearing yourself is actually super useful when you're solving problems. So I kind of like to relate this to the idea of writing an essay or writing a paper, right? A lot of your teachers or professors or people in your life, I'm sure, have told you read or proofread your essay out loud, because you'll be able to actually hear a lot of the mistakes that you're making, or parts that sound clunky, or things that you should kind of revise. And I think that really kind of holds true with code as well. I think if you're able to actually talk about what you're thinking about and why, that's going to help jumpstart your own ideas in your own head, just hearing them out loud as to what things you should probably latch onto and why. The other reason why I think rubber ducking during your interviews, or like initially talking about that solution or potential solution with your interviewer, is useful is also just the fact that this is a good way to sort of ask for help, but indirectly. So I don't really recommend saying something like, man, this is so hard, I don't really understand this problem, can you help me? Because that doesn't look super great to your interviewer, right? They're going to think that you're just asking for help, you're not trying, you're giving up. So rubber ducking actually gives you a good chance to say something like, hey Kevin, my interviewer, I've really thought about 1, 2, and 3, and I think that 1 is a really good idea, or it's really important here because of X, Y, and Z, but I'm still having a little bit of trouble trying to figure out D. And so what that basically does is it tells your interviewer everything that's going on in your head. It's telling your interviewer things that you're latching onto, things that you're thinking about and why, and then it tells them, okay, Kevin is clearly thinking about these different things, he's clearly thinking about the problem critically, he's just having a little bit of trouble with this one piece, maybe I can throw him a little hint and he can solve the problem. Or maybe I could throw him a little hint and he'll fully understand what's happening and he'll come up with a solution on his own. And so that really just gives you a way to ask for help, but it's doing so in the best way, in my opinion. So finally, guys, rubber ducking is great because it actually lets your interviewer know where your head is at, right? So if you're constantly talking out loud about all the things that you're thinking and why, it gives your interviewer a really good chance to kind of interject and tell you something that they think would be helpful or useful. It also just gives them a chance to let them know what you're thinking about, which can help them properly guide the interview in the right direction. So a lot of people have this misconception that during an interview, it's just you versus the world. No one's there to help you. They want to know if you can do some ridiculous problem in 40 minutes, and that's the end of the day if you can't get it. And that's really not the case, and I think that you should try and change your mindset. What a good interviewer will actually do is help you wrestle with the problem and help you work through it, right? Software engineering is a collaborative process. In the real world, you're constantly working with a ton of different people, whether it's from product, tech, marketing, so on and so forth. And so it's really a collaborative thing. It's kind of a team effort, really. And so if you can kind of throw your interviewer a bone and let them know what you're thinking about and keep them up to date with where your head is at, they can try and properly steer the ship if you are having trouble. So a good interviewer will, again, sort of pull you back in if you're going the wrong way. And if you're going the right way and you ask for the encouragement or their thoughts, they'll help egg you on and tell you to go down that path. So again, remember that it's a collaborative process. Don't be afraid to ask for help from your interviewer, but just make sure that you do it the right way. So if everything else is failing, if rubber ducking isn't working, and you're still having trouble sort of coming up with a solution in real life or thinking about the problem in real life, my final suggestion is just to have an emergency plan. Okay, and the whole point of an emergency plan is if really everything goes wrong, this is kind of where we just throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. But we're going to do so in an organized fashion. We're going to do so with style. And so what I really recommend for an emergency plan is just to have a systematic way to go through all the different data structures, algorithms, or concepts that you think could be useful or applied to a variety of different interview questions. So for example, if I had a list of data structures, I can kind of take them one by one and check, is a linked list helpful here, yes or no? And if it's helpful, I can try and apply it. And if it's not, I can kind of throw it out. And so what this will help me do is just systematically go through all my options and try and narrow down the search space as to what could be applicable or helpful in this situation and why. You guys could do this by having a giant acronym. You guys could do this by having maybe just like the list that you can memorize and then little tidbits as to why a hash map is helpful versus why a stack or a queue is helpful in different scenarios. And so what I like to compare this to is kind of like a puzzle, right? If we're doing a small-ish puzzle, maybe 100 pieces, it's not that ridiculous, although some people might say it is, to take every piece and just try and match it on a singular spot, right? So again, if we just pick up the linked list piece and check if it fits in the spot, we'll very quickly know, okay, this is not useful, this is not the answer, I'm going to throw it away. And I'm just going to pick up the next piece from my emergency plan and see if that piece fits. Also, I don't really think the puzzle is as big as 100 pieces. I think it's probably smaller than that, but general idea is there. You know what I'm saying. So also another reason why having an emergency plan that has been practiced and structured is super helpful is because chances are you might be a little bit nervous, or you might not think you're going to perform as well or perform normally under the pressure that you might be in during an interview. So having this emergency practiced and structured plan, this will help ensure that you're not going to forget any of the possible solutions to problems or things that could be helpful when you are under that pressure or that time constraint. So basically what I'm trying to say with this emergency plan is there's definitely going to be scenarios where you're nervous or under pressure in your life, but there's no way that you're going to forget how to recite the ABCs, and that's really what I think this emergency plan is. It's an ace in the hole. It's a card that's in your back pocket, and you can play it whenever you want to, whenever you need to, and hopefully it's sort of your North Star, right? It's just going to guide you in that right direction. It's going to narrow down that search space, and hopefully you'll be able to pick out from the bunch the thing or the things that are useful for you in this problem and know why. So guys, that's going to do it for our video today. Thank you so much for watching. Just as a quick recap, my 3 tips were to think about the problem in real life, rubber duck, and have an emergency plan if all else fails. So guys, I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, be sure to leave the video a like and subscribe to the channel for more, and I'll see you guys next time.